Hey, this is James Chambers here with the Reach Millennials Now Mastermind and reachmillennialsnow.com. We are on our third live webinar here during social distancing, providing an opportunity for you all to get your questions answered on all the things to be able to reach millennials, understand how to create discipleship environments that retain them, be able to develop them into ministry leaders. And for those of you that are in context where you want to reach more of the unchurched, we talk about ways to be able to make some shifts and tweaks in our ministries and our evangelism so that millennials are more curious about Christ. So let's open up our time of questions and answers, and we will get started. So who has their first question?
I have my first question, James. It's centered around Facebook engagement. We've been live streaming now for the
past. Should there be a single person who's like in charge of reaching millennials, or is it better to have a team approach?
Can you tell me a little bit about your ministry context, and so I can think with your mind a little bit what you're seeing?
Sure. So like most people, we have gone to virtual church. We're live streaming services on Sunday. All our small groups have transitioned to a Zoom format. Mm-hmm. And we use social media primarily as information. In terms of, specifically millennials, it's getting information out there about, we're having a Zoom meeting, check your email for a link, or, making that connection specifically around an event.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so do you have, it sounds like you have two questions you're thinking in mind, and for those of you that are watching this is happening during social distancing, so a lot of us are on internet church now, which is awesome because we can reach more people. I'm hearing two things. One, are you asking around how to reach millennials in terms of social distancing time? Or are you talking about after social distancing in terms of appointing a leader? And then the second question is, are you asking about how to use a technology to be able to do that? Or can you clarify a little bit for me?
Yeah, so specifically for now, in this time of social distancing, because it looks like we're going to be in this situation for at least another month. Mm-hmm. We have a lot of people connected through, Facebook and Instagram, and we use it primarily to let them know that there's, something happening specifically for their group to get together. But the people producing that communication, should it be a single person? Is it a team approach good? Can it be used for more than just information? So I guess there's a bunch of questions in there.
Yeah, I got what you're saying. So a little bit, and we have a video we have a 3-part video series on using social media, leveraging social media to reach millennials. You can go to our YouTube channel and get it. And but one of the first things I want to encourage people to think about is just the power and the leverage that social media can bring. I was having a conversation yesterday with a pastor, and what we talked about was in normal relationships, in order for me to get to know him as a pastor, I would have to get introduced to him. I'd have to fly to his city. He'd have to put time on his calendar. We would then have to have coffee and go through all the basic politeness and being cordial before we can really get to the nitty gritty of who we are and what we're trying to learn about each other. And then that's going to have to happen 7, 8 more times in order to be able to really develop a relationship of any kind of quality. And so that can take weeks, that can take months. The power and the leverage of social media is twofold. One is, number one, the person you're trying to develop the relationship with that may or may not know you very well can access you via your content, whether it's video or things you're writing on demand, and all of that, all the rhythm that it takes and all the exposure that it takes, the hours, the minutes, can all get shrunk. And the time can get shrunk for that. So a person can end up feeling like they know you after just maybe a week of consuming your content. I know there's one ministry in particular that my wife and I have received a lot from, and this ministry's most of their content was on YouTube at the time. We watched over 100 hours of their content. I flew down to meet up with them and went through one of his trainings. And I'm sitting there talking with him like I've known him forever, and he's looking at me like, dude, I don't know you. but that's the power of the leverage of social media, is that it shrinks the time of what you can do. Number two, in order for me and that minister to be able to really get to know each other, what we began to do is we can begin to interact over social media. So what I want to encourage you to think about, Peggy, is what is the goal you have for using the social media? So is the social media goal just to use it just as an email blast, just to communicate information? Is that the primary goal? Is the goal to be able to have millennials that are already in your congregation interacting with each other, or interacting with a certain minister, or interacting with the rest of the congregation in a certain way? Is the goal to reach millennials that are not a part of your church yet in the community? Whatever the goal is going to dictate how you use that platform. So platforms like Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, they have the ability to be able to actually create community online. And so one of the things that I encourage you to think about is number one, which of those three is your goal? And then number two is, what is the strategy to then use to accomplish that goal? So let's talk back and forth about this a little bit. Of those three goals, which is the goal that you and your team are trying to operate with right now?
So right now, we're really just using it as a communication tool, one way, church to people.
Mm-hmm.
But I love the idea of creating community, you know, and having interaction between them, especially because we can't get together physically right now. So I think
Okay.
that's going to be our next goal, is to transition and include that.
Okay, and when you think about community, are you thinking about community within just the millennials, or community across generations? Because then that would dictate the type of platform I encourage you to use and what to do on it.
Yeah, right now I think community within that generation. When we were able to meet physically for service, the young adults used to hang out after service and all get together and just visit and talk and fellowship, and they've lost that.
Mm-hmm.
We've gone to having like a Zoom fellowship after service, but all the people who tune in aren't that generation.
Right.
They're, you know, older.
Okay.
So they have lost that community, and I want to be able to recreate that for them.
Okay. So here's something I would encourage you to think about. And this is zooming out just to understand how millennials think and how we operate. And again, no millennial, you can't have a rule for all millennials because we're all different people. But in terms of the trends of our culture right now, I would actually question whether they've lost that sense of community or not. So I wouldn't presume that they've lost a sense of community. They might be having the community just in different environments and in different ways. And then in actuality, for many of them, again, I don't know your particular, but for many of millennials, this jolt in our society is not actually too much of a jolt for them, other than the fact they can't go to bars or restaurants and hang out with their friends in public. Because a lot of them actually have a lot of community already online. So they could already be having that community. So one of the challenges you're going to face right now is you're trying to create a new rhythm that did not exist already. So what I would encourage, if you're talking about you only have one more month probably left in your state, I wouldn't be thinking about how do I force a new rhythm for a group of people that haven't established this already. I will be thinking longer term strategy. If I am seeing the power of social media and the leverage of social media to reach and have this kind of community period, then let's start using this time right now to build that momentum up for a month from now, 4 weeks from now, when life is back to normal, so that more millennials can be retained in our ministries because we have more outlets to engage with them. So one thing I'd have you think about is yes, I hear that you're using the platforms just as like an announcement platform, but that's really it's kind of like taking the steroids out of a steroid. You know, it can work, like you can still get it done, but the real power of social media is the fact that you can create community with your people. So a couple of things to consider. Inside of Facebook, you have the ability to create private groups. Inside of so I would encourage, if you're trying to have all of your congregation already is on Facebook, you're trying to have an intergenerational dialogue, I would consider Facebook, because most of the older generation is on Facebook, whereas most of the younger generation is on Instagram. If you're only wanting to do this for millennials, Instagram's not the best platform for building the community, because the way you can interact is only within certain posts. So if you're trying to build community, I would encourage Facebook for millennials as well as for the whole church. And what you can do is you can actually create segmented groups, private groups, if you will, within Facebook, if you needed to segment it that thoroughly. Like if you only wanted millennials to hang out, like a millennial fellowship at Rock Church, you can have that, for example. And then what I would do for your general Facebook page and your general Facebook group for your church is I wouldn't just post announcements. I would invite two-way communication between your followers and you. So let's say, for example, you all put out Pastor Ryan's sermon. The sermon gets put onto YouTube, not to YouTube, onto Facebook. And I would encourage Pastor Ryan in his sermon to ask people to respond on the platform. So it might go something like this. Let's say he's talking about 2 Corinthians 5, we're called to be ambassadors for Christ. Let's say that's a sermon. And so I would go something like this. Hey, as you all are listening to me, I want to just encourage you that, all of us are called to be ambassadors for Christ, even during this time of social distancing. So I want you to right now, as you're listening on the platform, I want you to go down into the comment section and write down the name of someone that you are praying with or praying for to know Christ. Put that name down, and we're going to think about this person throughout this message. He's going to preach a little bit more, then he's going to come back. He's going to tell a story about maybe one time he reached out to his friend to share the gospel. Then he's going to come back to speak to the audience on the camera. Hey, I want you to think about this. The person's name that you wrote down, I want you to think about one way you can serve them during this time of social distancing, just to let them know you're thinking about them, you're encouraging them, and write that in the comment below. And so now the sermon is over. Now what we do is we go back to the Facebook group and we get on there, and maybe there's just a video where you or Pastor Ryan holds the phone up and just talks right into the phone more raw, and just says, hey, it was great to think about the people we want to serve. I want to encourage you all. Let's begin a time of prayer for them. And so maybe that's an invitation to a Zoom link or invitation to a live prayer time on the Facebook page. And they can send in their prayer requests live and even pray, or if it's on Zoom, they can all obviously see each other and pray together. But what you're trying to do is you're trying to get calls to action throughout the post that you're giving. So whether it's a written text post or a video post, the community starts to get trained to respond, and then it turns into actual community on Facebook and the different platforms. You can do this on YouTube. You can obviously the platform is very different because there's really only one video they can comment on. But after a while, they'll get trained to know that you're going to call for response and invite them to other platforms like a Zoom, where you can begin to have that kind of fellowship. But again, just to give you, just be very realistic, it's going to take some training and some time that may or may not get done in the next 3 or 4 weeks, depending on how frequently you all are posting and things like that. So that's a part of it. So what I would encourage you to do is to find the leader of the millennial group that you're wanting to reach, whatever that fellowship was, bring them in on this conversation, and then actually to fast forward all of the progress, have them work with one of the millennials on your team to spread the word that you all are trying to build this online community for them, and even ask if that's something that they need or want at this time, because they may already have it in other places. I hope that wasn't too
That's really helpful. Thank you.
Okay, and then I encourage you, go to the YouTube channel. You go to YouTube, type in James Chambers, Reach Millennials Now, and it will have the videos. It's like a longer series on how to use social media to leverage the power of it to reach millennials. What other questions do we have?
James, this is Cavell again. Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir, I can hear you.
All right, good. I just wanted to ask a question around how many platforms to use, because we're on Facebook right now. We're thinking about expanding into Facebook groups and having that segmented group for a lot of our millennials, but we also have what they call a band app. I'm not sure if you've heard that technology before. It's band app. So we've already created a group where we have, people of all ages within there, creating a sense of community, sharing prayer requests and doing things like that. we started that before the COVID-19 pandemic. So I'm trying to see which platform should we push, or should we just take a mixed martial arts approach, for lack of a better term, and try to do all of them like simultaneously.
Yeah, that's a really good question. And again, I would have you think about like what is the primary goal you're trying to accomplish? Twitter's primary goal is a counter punching platform. It's a platform to engage, put out thought out, and get a response back or give a rebuttal back. It's a way to have an ongoing conversation and shorten the distance between a public figure and their followers. Instagram is the goal of Instagram is basically appear into my life, appear into my ministry. So if you want to see everyday life with me, see what is going on in my mind at any given moment, whether it's in my ministry context or in my life, is kind of designed more as the quick glimpse. Also, Instagram is the goal of Instagram is to give you an instant glimpse into today's trending culture. So if you want to know what's going on in culture, you just go to Instagram and you can scroll through it, kind of like a person was used to scroll through the newspaper or flip through the newspaper to see what's happening. That's how Instagram is really positioned themselves. Facebook's primary goal is actually not about you. It's actually about them. It's to keep you on their platform as long as possible. Their primary goal is to do that by creating community online, so that if you have community online, you'll stay on their platform and they can advertise to you more. YouTube's primary goal is to be able to do two things. Number one, obviously be a content house, a library, a video library of your content, whether that's educational or just, again, looking into my life. Number two, the primary goal of YouTube is to be able to allow people to get their message out to the masses. And then number three, to allow a following to be developed so that you can continue to educate them on whatever your message is. So those are the different goals of the four primary main social media platforms. What is your particular goal for what you and your church are trying to accomplish?
I think our particular goal at this point is to try to build community, because we're in the whole, our mission surrounds basically us being a community of faith. So we're trying to build community through a lot of those social media platforms, but we're also trying to get our content out too as well. So we've been on all the social media platforms. The only one that we really haven't been on, the only two, are Twitter and YouTube, where we're trying to start a YouTube channel to just have a house for a lot of our content. So I'm thinking probably Facebook is probably going to be our number one go-to. And then after Facebook would be YouTube. IG, we're doing just like snippets and little things like that on our IG page. So we're pretty consistent with that, with just, a lot of the things that we're doing in the community, because we're handing out lunches during this pandemic as of right now. So we've gotten really good traction on that. Okay. We've gotten people just from the community to donate to that cause. So it's a pretty good thing. So I'm thinking Facebook for a whole lot of the community, especially to build upon the community. And then also it'll be YouTube after a while to house the content and allow, the following to develop and try to do some things on that platform as well.
All right. So before you pick a platform, the second question after identifying your goal is, who's the audience you want to reach? So you heard me ask
the audience.
Peggy. So I asked this to Peggy, where I said, do you want to reach people within your church and to build community? Do you want to build community with people outside of your church that are not a part of your church yet? Are you wanting to build community with people away from your region, like around the world, so to speak? Are you want to build community with people that are in like-minded organizations that you want to partner with? So who's your audience?
Right, and that's what we have to figure out. So I'll be taking that back to our leadership team, because with our audiences, we have our band app that's with our people within the church. So if you become a member of the church, one of the things that we ask you to do is just to join our band app, and then you're communicating with members from the church. So the band app is more so for people that are already connected. We need to have something for people that are looking to get connected with us, A, and B, have something just for the community as a whole. So I'll take that back to our leadership team.
So
because we already have a pretty strong connection with the members within our church by our regular band app, social media app that we're using just to create our group within there. So we have like even auxiliaries. We have our choir, we have our musicians, we have, just a regular, it's called GGT Talk. So if somebody has a prayer request or somebody wants to give a praise report, it's a way for us to stay connected within the congregation.
Hmm. And then the third question after you get your audience is now define the kind of community you're wanting to create. Like so once you identify the goal, the number two, you identify your audience, then it's like, okay, now what is it that I'm wanting this audience to do? So
right.
So those are the three steps for really leveraging social media. Unfortunately, people use social media just to post and make announcements or just
right.
as a content library for videos, which is fine. And they're hoping that somehow people will find their content unless they're just wanting to host it as like a hard drive.
Right.
But after you get those three things in order, now what you start to do is you start to use the tags, like on YouTube, for example. They're
Right.
use certain tags to be able to help people find your content, because YouTube is primarily a search engine. It's not just an organic reach platform. It can do
Right.
that once you get to volume, but it's designed as a search engine. And then secondly, the hashtags. So let's say your goal is to reach people in the community. The way you would,
Right.
and let's say, like, for example, did you say what's the outreach? You say you're doing something like with food or something, right?
Yeah, we're doing lunches Monday through Thursday from noon to 1.
Okay, so let's take that. So if I am trying to build relationships through social media with that outreach, what I'm going to do is I'm going to find the hashtag of an organization or a local school, a middle school, a high school, or whoever I'm trying to feed, and I'm going to find out who's like the people I want to connect with, and then what is the hashtag they're using, and then I'm going to use their hashtag on Instagram, on whatever platforms you're using. I'm going to use their hashtag so that it pings them whenever we post about what we're doing. And then eventually what's going to happen is they're going to see, oh, they're like us. They have the same heart that we have, the same mindset.
Right.
And now we start to reach out to them. We direct message them. It's called DM them. I may know that, but other people listening may not. But so we direct message them, and now it's like, oh yeah, they started to see and follow what we've been posting, and it's similar to what they're posting. So that's why I say you really want to think through those three questions, because then it's going to dictate which platform you use, what you post on that platform, and then who's going to be able to see you on those platforms.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. These are good questions. Let's keep them going. And also, if anybody has anything they want to chime in on some of the questions you're hearing, I'm not the only holder of knowledge on here. So share what you know. Let's help the body of Christ.
James, I have a quick question about Instagram. You mentioned that it could be used to give like a snapshot of, this is my life, this is my ministry. Is that something you recommend every pastor do?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think that every pastor, if they want to reach millennials, they need to be on Instagram. And the beauty about what Instagram does for a pastor is actually a lot of things. One, it lets the younger people know that you get them, that you're in their world, and that goes miles. So as an evangelist, if I'm speaking to a person about Christ and they feel like I can't relate to them or I don't understand them, the conversation is basically over. I mean, to a degree, right? For every speaker on a stage, if our audience feels like we can't get them and relate to them, it's over. So what I encourage pastors to do is not only have an Instagram account and post regularly on it, but you can call them to action while you are preaching from the stage. And so I was speaking at a Millennial and Gen Z conference about a month ago, right before all this happened, and I started a new account to be able to continue to have those particular millennials and Gen Z follow me and begin to disciple them. So I created a new Instagram account, and while I was on the stage, actually I wasn't even on the stage, they just put it up on the PowerPoint and said, hey, follow James here. And about 200 people instantly just started following me. And then what started to happen is after that conference was over, 3 days later, we hosted a prayer meeting for them. And our team was praying live for them, and they were sending in prayer requests, and we were praying uh, all around the country together through Instagram, through the live feed. And then secondly, I'm able to post scriptures and quiet times and thoughts, and then ask them to respond in the comments section around what they're getting. We're reading through Luke right now. And I'm asking them to post down below, like, what is your gathering from Luke? So you can do things like that. So I encourage every pastor to, while they're preaching from the stage, have their, it's called a handle, their username, have their Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, whatever they have, handle up on the PowerPoint, on the bulletins. Obviously, you do that for the local church as well. But then call the people while you're speaking to participate while you're preaching. Say, hey, pull your phone out right now, follow me, or pull your phone out right now and comment below. Take a picture where in the sanctuary. Take a picture of that you're in church, and then comment below what's one nugget that you're taking from the sermon that that you're gonna think about this week or pray about this week. And you're just inviting them to do what they're already going to be doing anyway. They're already going to be on their phone anyway, most likely during your service. Depending on the church that we're a part of, I know some high churches, people are a little more respectful around that kind of thing. But if they're going to be using their platforms anyway, I encourage them, say, let's do it together so we can all be together in it. And then while they're posting, it's not just posting, Bible teaching stuff only. It's posting like their life. Like if he likes golf, if he likes cars, if he's doing his quiet time, taking a picture of the passage that he's reading that's highlighted, or someone taking a picture of him reading it. People get kind of sensitive around other things like family and having other people's faces in that. So maybe depending on the philosophy of that pastor, if he's a family-oriented pastor and they know who his family is, by all means. But I know some pastors are a little more celebrity and they don't like to have their photos of other family members online and things like that. But the more you can do to give them a peek into your life and make you more human, it just goes really far. Anybody else want to chime in on that?
That's critical. Even pastors I dialogue with on social media, the more human that they are, the more relatable that they are, the better that it is for everybody. Thinking of a pastor in particular in the Nashville area, when I was in school, I attended Tennessee State from 1998 to 2002.
Are you serious? My mom and dad met at Tennessee State.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. So, okay. Awesome, man. Fellow alumni. That's good. But yeah, I was down there from 98 to 2002. And this pastor, he was first meeting at the World Baptist Center down there in Nashville.
Okay.
After they got put out of the World Baptist Center, they wanted to relocate and have all their services at Tennessee State at the Gentry Center.
Okay.
A lot of people thought, that was a bad move, but we on the campus thought it was amazing because, number one, you're reaching all the college-age students. Number two, it's right on campus. They don't have an excuse not to attend. They can just walk right down to the Gentry Center, come through there. And then thirdly, they were serving them food afterward. So this particular pastor not only engaged millennials, but he grew his church through that community and being personable and relatable. Number two, and watch this, that same pastor was an itinerant or an adjunct professor at Tennessee State teaching a course. Mm-hmm. He taught a course like 2 years in theology, and this course was full. This course would fill up. As soon as everything opened to register for the following semester, his course would fill up right away. Yeah. So you would see this pastor on the campus, very personable, very relatable, and that really helped propel his ministry. At the time, he already had 5,000 people. Yeah. By the time I left in 2002, he was at about 15 on up. So now he's at about 30,000. So it's one of those things that, number one, he was very intentional and very strategic about making the move from the World Baptist Center to Tennessee State University's Gentry Center while they were getting their church built. And then after that, they continued to forge a relationship with Tennessee State. They still have their college Sundays on TSU's campus to this very day. Wow. So it's just a lot of things just like that. He was very intentional, very relatable, and as a result, he was able to reach people, just not only in Nashville, but around that whole Middle Tennessee and, the Northern Kentucky area as well. So
yeah. And some of you all that might be listening to this around that story might think, okay, well, my area or my city can't even host 30,000 or 15,000 people in a church, let alone millennials. Or you even have a thought that, hey, I don't want to necessarily grow a big church. So I want to share a couple insights that I've seen. The I use the word leverage in the trainings when I talk about social media. The leverage that social media gives a pastor, a proclaimer of the gospel, whoever this person that's going to be sharing God's word is, a church, a ministry, the leverage it gives, I don't think we as a church really kind of fathom it. I'll tell you a quick story. There's a pastor who on YouTube, they ended up having only about, usually only get about 1,500 views on YouTube, which is a good amount for an average size church, but it's about 1,500 views. And this particular pastor was doing his normal thing and had a clip around dating that someone took from his YouTube video and put it on the Facebook page, and on their Facebook pages it went viral. Then all of a sudden, this pastor, who was not trying to reach anyone besides the people he was already reaching, his name just becomes a household name around the country because of this viral Facebook video. The viral Facebook video, then people started to find out who this pastor was, started to go to his Instagram, started to go to his Facebook page, etc. But now, so now just 3 years later, he started. Well, actually, I can even go further. I can go further back than that. It was about 1.5 years later, after the Facebook viral video, that this pastor started to get, on average, 300,000 views on his YouTube channel. And now it's up to about 500,000 views on a video, any given video that comes out on a Sunday from him preaching. He wasn't even being strategic. Like, it was an accident. It was an accident. He wasn't trying to grow his church. He was very focused on his church plants that he had around his neighborhood. He was a community church. And now he's actually become a national and a worldwide church, in the sense that people are following him online, following their content. They give their offerings. They have online membership now, etc. But then people actually leave where they live to fly in, to move and be a part of his church now. That's the leverage that social media can bring. So if we're in neighborhoods or areas of the country that are rural, or the woods, or very small, or whatever our things are, that's the leverage that social media can bring. And this particular church actually just really beautiful, was able to give about $1 million to different ministries in one day, because of all the growth. They just had a heart to want to continue to serve. And so they, in one day, gave $1 million to help other ministries. It was really beautiful. So that's the leverage. So I encourage Peggy, anyone that's listening to this, yes, have your pastor, not just your church or ministry, but whoever the face of your ministry is, though they may not want to be a celebrity as an evangelist. I'm thinking, how can people hear the gospel unless a preacher is sent? How can the preacher be sent unless they're on Instagram? We don't need money anymore necessarily. We just need free technology.
Can I ask a quick question that came to mind while you're sharing that? We actually found that ourselves when we started live streaming. We went from, we're for people who don't know us, we're a small church out in the woods. We have about 225 members. On a Sunday morning, when we started live streaming, we have about 80 households viewing, which is, not bad. But within 3 days, there'll be 800 views of our video on Facebook. So how do you have an online community when they're not part of your physical community?
That's a good question. So what I would, is a couple of things that you can do when you go into Facebook. Like, are you all posting on your business page, or are you posting on your Facebook group?
Business page.
So when you go to your business page, you can go to Audience Insights, and you can kind of get a sense of the people, not the people, they don't give the names, but you can kind of get a sense of some of the trends of traffic. And so I encourage you to look at your Audience Insights, get a sense of the trends of the traffic, and then depending on how savvy you want to get with this, we won't have time to go through this in this particular video, but you can actually run ads to the people that have viewed your video. when you run the ad to the video, don't make it like a commercial like on TV. Make it like for the goal you're trying to do. Hey, this is Pastor Ryan. I noticed that you have been following us online on our Facebook videos. We want to invite you into our online community. Click this link below, and then that link, have that link take them to wherever that is. It could be a registration page, so you get their name, their phone number, their email, or it could be an invitation to the private Facebook group if you have a private Facebook group, or the public Facebook group, whatever it is. But you're trying to bring them into your ecosystem. You can run an ad to the people from your audience insights. Secondly, I don't know, don't quote me on this, but I believe there's a way to not do the paid ad. And someone else can speak into this if you have a sense of where I'm trying to go with this. But on Facebook, using audience insights for people that watch your videos, I think there's a way to do it outside of the paid advertising. Paid ads are cheap. I wouldn't even think about it, the paid word of it. Don't think about being paid, but think about how extremely targeted. It's a rifle. It's a rifle with the crosshairs. Go to these people that watch this video. And the cool thing about Facebook, kind of the cool thing and the negative thing about Facebook is very liberal with what they count as a view on their platform, as opposed to YouTube, for example. So on Facebook, after like 1 to 2 seconds, they count it as a view. I'm being, the numbers don't really matter, but the point is like under 5 seconds, they count it as a view, something like that. YouTube, on the other hand, is a lot more stringent. Like they're like, okay, after 30 seconds, after 15 seconds, this is a view. So one, I would say don't make too many decisions based off of those numbers, because they could be, they're very liberal. But number two, take those numbers and target them with ads, and target them to be able to pull them into your ecosystem, because that could be a lot of people that are watching.
That's great. Thank you.
Does that help?
Tremendously.
Awesome. Yeah, for all of social media, again, go back to your goal and go back to the actions you want your people to take, and then you figure out a way to pull them into your ecosystem. Because right now, I think one of you all mentioned, like, should we just be a ninja and just try all these different things and use every platform? No, you'll go crazy doing that, or you need a team to do that, which you can have as volunteers, and we'll go into that in a moment. But just pick your goal and then pull them into the environment you want them into. There are some people that aren't on Facebook, that's fine. There's some people that aren't on Instagram, that's fine. Figure out, hey, is Zoom the platform that we're going to invite them into? Every Tuesday night at 7 p.m., we're having our fellowship here. And then you just have multiple environments within your ecosystem that they can come into. I mentioned something real quick around a team. So earlier, Peggy, you asked a question around, should a millennial be the one leading this, or who should be leading this thing? A millennial doesn't necessarily have to be the one leading this, but let's say like the senior pastor or the administrator of the church is trying to do this, and they don't already operate on social media. They're not already on Facebook religiously, Instagram religiously, and it's going to be like a steep learning curve. You can learn it. The question is how many platforms will you have time to learn? And then when it comes to posting and managing the comments that people are going to post, responding back to them, because remember, trying to create community and conversation. So there's a responding nature to it. How much time do I have to do that? If I have time, by all means, take the time to learn it. It's one of the number one evangelistic tools you can use right now. As point in case, the story I just told you about that one pastor. But then number two, you don't have to be the one to do it. I encourage people to see the social media ministry just as important as the worship ministry, just as important as the small group or Sunday school ministry. What I mean by that is this: for all of these departments, we have a leader that is trained. We have followers or participants in those ministries that are trained to follow that leader's cue, and they serve the church. And so evangelism right now is really growing a lot because of social media. So I would appoint a leader, and this is a valuable service to Jesus. This is a volunteer ministry in the church that is just as legitimate as the worship leader. These are the evangelists of today. So I would find someone that will volunteer their time, so it's not all on the pastor or all on the administrator of the church. Then number two, have that person work with the pastor to do two things. Number one, create content, and then number 2, distribute that content. And then I would say actually number 3, manage that content, meaning the comments. So the content creator is going to be the pastor most likely, if it's sermon clips, or if it's certain things they're doing on video, teachings, thoughts for the day, devotionals, etc. That person that understands social media can work with the pastor and say, hey, pastor, what do you want to communicate to the church at this time? Now, okay, let me tell you what kind of form this needs to be in. Here's how you have to talk about it. Here's how you have to communicate it so that it vibes on this particular platform. And then now it's out of the pastor's hands, and this person, the social media leader, is only responsible for distribution and the management of the content. Now the pastor or the administrator, whoever else, can jump on and respond to people's comments as well. There are some churches that are so large that the pastors don't respond to the comments. It's just the pastor's name, and they have somebody responding for them, talking like they're the pastor. So depending on your busyness and what you're focused on, just depends on how you set your team up. And then you can also go full shebang, where that social media team leader has a team, and that team gets into the more beautification parts of the social media: video editing, staging, different types of social media posts, interviews, to actual sets and things like that. You can go really as far as you want with it and go into full video production, depending on your team's abilities and capacity. So those are the 3 ways I would think about it: solo pastor and our our church administrator. Number 2, social media leader working with the pastor, doing content creation and distribution. Number 3, a whole team that is going to work with the pastor to be able to make it the most beautiful posts and all that full production. So we have about maybe about 5 more minutes or so. What other questions do you all have around social media?
James, can you hear me?
Yes.
So I know you talked about organic reach and some of the other social media apps. I'm probably one of the younger ones in here. So one of the things, I've done a lot of research with the whole TikTok app. It's one of the newer ones. I don't know if anybody's heard about those. But it's well over 1 billion people now that are on that platform in about 1.5 years. And from everything I've learned, it's the easiest one to gain organic reach on because of their algorithm and their app versus the more established ones. So I don't know if you've looked into that much, but what do you have to say about TikTok itself?
Yeah, TikTok was like, so that's the new wave about 1.5 years ago. People saw it coming and it just took over. So I encourage people to go on to TikTok. And then TikTok, obviously, or not obvious, for some of you all that are newer to it, if you remember like what Vines were back in the day, meaning like 2 years ago in social media time, that's dinosaur ages. But it's kind of like these quick posts, these quick bursts of short videos. There are 1 billion people on it, as she mentioned, but the primary generation that's on it is Gen Z and the younger millennial. If you're going to spend a lot of time if your goal is to reach unchurched and people who are not already a part of your church, it's a good outreach tool. If your goal is to create community within your local church, it's kind of like lower on the priority list. Other than this, it will let your followers in your church know that you and your pastor are cool, number 1, but number 2, you all are probably funny, because short burst videos, like under 7 seconds, a lot of times, usually there aren't these deep thoughts. They are these short, it's comedic, usually at 7 seconds, or it's just like, hey, here's what's going on, or I just had this quick thought. It's more of these shorter things. So they're able to just see into and relate with you very, very quickly. So again, if you're trying to reach the community and new people, I would say, heck yeah, do TikTok. If you're only trying to get down and build community in the local church, there are better platforms for it. But again, I would just encourage you all, just for the sake of knowing what's going on in the culture, go to YouTube, go to Google, research TikTok, see what people are posting, and start to get the feel. You can also use TikTok if there's like a really short, poignant punchline of a sermon. You can just pop it in there real quick, and video edit it, cut it, and post it. And it can, you can start to build a following of people that like your brand of preaching, your brand of your message. That's great. I don't know who Austin is, but thanks for coming on. Well, what's your name?
Austin Reynolds.
Oh, it's Austin. It is Austin. Oh,
Yeah,
what's
it
up,
is
man?
Austin.
How you doing? Good to see you, man.
Hey, just saying hello. This is Oscar Owens.
Hey, what's up, Austin? How you doing?
Just came over real quick.
Good. I got about maybe time for one more question, and we'll wrap up.
Every video have your social media a badge at the bottom.
Yes. If you can, because it's free advertising.
Okay.
It's free advertising. So I was sharing with the pastor yesterday, the social media handle is what the business card was back in the day. So whenever we approach people to do business or to introduce ourselves, we used to exchange business cards. Now more recently, we start to exchange phone numbers, not business cards. Now it's like, hey, I'm James. What's your social media handle? Here's mine. Follow it. And so it is free advertising. And it's important because all of these platforms work on algorithms. So the more people that follow you, the more people that respond to you, the frequency with which they follow you, all starts to put your posts higher and higher up, and starts to get you across people that may want to know your message and follow your ministry.
Okay.
So again, I mean, back in the day, before YouTube, you had to have $10,000 to $30,000 a month to be on TBN, to be on Daystar, to be on whatever the Christian network was. To be on ABC was like $1 million a month. So wow. you have just free publicity, free publicity without having to have all those donors now. So I encourage, use it at every turn. Thank you all for this these questions. I hope this was helpful. Again, a little bit later today, the videos around the 3-part series around social media will be on the YouTube channel. All 3 of them will actually be up there. And so you can go to the YouTube channel, find those. If you are interested in reaching more millennials, go to reachmillennialsnow.com. You can participate in either getting our master class, which is 6 hours on how we reach over 4,000 millennials without watering down the gospel, and how you can start to do the same thing in your ministry context. Or if you want to participate in our 10-month training program to be able to develop millennials into being leaders in your local church, you can give us a ring, and we will help you out. So reachmillennialsnow.com/mastermind is that address. So God bless you all. And if you're watching us on YouTube, subscribe and hit the notification bell so you know when these videos drop. I'll see you all soon.
Thank you, James.